Put my YouTube face on. How's it going, YouTube? Anime Bar Lounge here with Anime Bar Fight. Here with Corey. We're going to be spitting some hot facts and hot takes and wrong opinions about anime.
I only have wrong opinions.
Me too, buddy. First, we're going to talk about Pirate Princess Fina.
That's an anime.
Sure is. Do you have thoughts on that anime?
I watched Fena when it came out. I have not touched it since it came out.
Okay, so you've seen it. You saw it a while ago.
Yeah.
I saw the first episode. Honestly, I don't have much to talk about either, but I really liked what I saw. I didn't know if I was gonna like it because the first episode drags a little bit, but like some people like come to rescue Fena, and it kind of like kicks into overgear at that point. The animation looks really nice. Something you're gonna hear me say a lot this season is that this season, every show I've watched this season is killing it in the music department and how it sounds. I have yet to watch an anime. I didn't watch much for so far, but everything I've seen has been killing it with the soundtrack, and I could not be happier because soundtrack is pretty important to me. But
yeah, I thought Fena looked nice.
Yeah.
I'm not really a fan of the titular character so far.
Oh, really? I like her design.
I like her design, but
she
I found her
seems kind of bratty, but
yeah, that was kind of thing. She went from sassy to annoying to me.
Oh, I see.
But I've only seen 2 episodes, and it was like at this point a month and a half ago. So I'm probably gonna have to restart it at this point.
All right. Well, we'll have more to say after our first impressions, but that's Fina for us. Now I'm gonna check out for a bit because I don't have much. I think I technically watched Aquatope, which we're gonna talk about after this one, but I don't remember what I saw. So for the next 2, I don't have much to say. But Jahi,
I think I had only watched like 1 episode of Jahi when we did the first one, so I've seen 2 more episodes since then.
Killing it.
But it just continued to be really, really funny. Introduced more characters. So I'm really excited to like just sit down and probably binge like everything that is left of it all in one go. But it's funny. I like it. Eat good. That's about it. What
about Aquatope?
Aquatope just continued to be really fucking good.
All right, good.
Like,
I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah. I think it has only gotten better. So.
Do you have anything like relevant to say about it though?
Well, in what way?
I don't know. What soundtrack, characters, animation?
It's really all just the same
aesthetic.
stuff that I had said the first time, to be honest. It's just consistent, and the character development has been increasing as it's going on too.
Good
so
for
that's really helpful too. I do think it might be Yuri baiting, but
well, Yuri's my favorite Tales protagonist, so
10 out of 10.
Aquatope? More like Aquatropes! Got him!
Fuck! You can't just say that.
I can say whatever I want.
This is his channel. Oh no.
I might get repercussions for it, but I can technically do it.
Oh no.
Demon Slayer. Second season. So, for those that don't know or haven't started, they made some weird decisions. So for Demon Slayer, they made a movie, and they decided the movie was going to be canon, and the canon movie's really good. I got to see it in theaters, humble brag. And so because the movie was canon and covers an arc in the manga, we were like, oh, cool, we get to just jump right into season 2, whole new arc. But then they're like, wait, what if we adapted the movie? And it's like, wait, why? So at first I was kind of annoyed about that, but then after having some time to sit with it and chill with it, I'm like, it gives more people an opportunity to see canon material, which I'm happy for in a weird sense, because I'm sure there would have been people that didn't think the movie was necessary, and they would have just jumped right into season 2 confused.
However, the first episode is not the movie. It was a filler episode that wasn't really a filler episode, sort of, kind of.
It's I don't know who specifically wrote the episode, but the episode we're talking about today was not part of the movie, and you can debate about how much filler or non-filler it is.
It's kind of a parallel to that episode of One Piece with Usopp early on.
But as for what we saw, well, I'm happy to say Ufotable animated it and worked on it, and as per everything Ufotable does, Chef's
It was
kiss
very
masterpiece.
good. Yeah, that first
Yeah.
episode's very, very good.
The first
even
episode's
if you don't
really
want to
good.
revisit the Demon Train in that way, you can still watch the first episode. Have a shit ton of fun.
I was happy to see more Rengoku because Rengoku doesn't get as much screen time as some of the other Hashiras in the grandstand of the story. So it was really cool to see him get a little bit more character development here.
Yeah.
And I think they did him really well in the character.
It's just a good little extra character bit.
Yeah. It's basically a whole episode dedicated to him, and I love all the Hashiras, so any episode dedicated to a Hashira is usually going to sell me pretty easily.
I think just a really solid episode.
The animation's there, everything Ufotable does. Where
I'm just wondering if the rest of this arc is going to be like literally just the movie recut, or if it's going to be reanimated.
I don't know, because I heard that there were new cuts in there, so there's new material in there at least.
Maybe a couple extra animated scenes.
We'll find out. So far, really, I'm just excited with this episode. I thought it was animated well. I like the characters they added. Like, they had this little girl
I think we're
with,
both
like,
kind of
bentos.
of the opinion that we might just put the rest of the episodes on in the background and kind of
I don't feel
pay attention.
We've read the manga, so so the fact that I've read the manga and seen an interpretation of the arc means I've already technically seen it twice. So going in for a third time, I don't think the train arc needs my full attention.
It'll be different once we hit the second half of the season,
which we're going to talk about more in winter.
Yep.
So that's Demon Slayer. Very good. One of our favorites. But moving on.
Is Ranking of Kings.
Yeah.
Yeah, just watched this episode literally a couple hours ago. It's got a really odd premise. It's about a deaf-mute prince that meets like a weird shadow thing. It's like this is something that's going to be 23 episodes long, so it's going to be a slow burn. But the animation is like really... It's got a very cool style to it. Feels kind of like a 80s, 90s anime, sort of like Astro Boy.
You and Andrew have been kind of on an old anime kind of kick,
we kind of have been,
right?
yeah.
So,
yeah. It hit for me really well, and I'm really, really interested to see where it's going to go. It's just very odd premise, so I don't have a lot of feelings on it yet. I just know that I like how it looks.
Anything else?
Not particularly. Just a strong first impression on it from one episode.
And then you watched the second season of 86.
86 is a series I have a really complicated relationship with.
So,
because
I haven't seen it, but I know of it, and I think I remember the Discord you added me to where it's like the people talking about animes and stuff. I remember seeing one of them recommend it. I think they recommended it to you.
They did, yeah. And it took me quite literally about 9 episodes of a 12-episode season for me to get interested.
Oh, okay.
This series feels very much like another Attack on Titan.
Okay.
I'm having fun with it, kind of despite itself. Because it makes a lot of decisions that I just generally don't like, and they're very reminiscent of decisions Attack on Titan made that I didn't like.
Oh, I see.
Season 2 so far is pretty much just more the same, but I'm more invested this time.
Okay.
Because it's following characters that I actually enjoy, and it's kind of trimmed the fat to this point where now I'm like, alright, you're focused on characters I know and like.
As someone who's watched a lot of anime now, that applies for both of us. I've always found it easier when seasonals start to watch the second seasons anyway. Because the first seasons, I'm like, alright, I gotta learn the characters, I gotta decide who I like, I gotta know what the story is, and if I even can get invested into it. But usually if I'm watching a season 2, even if I'm on the fence about watching the second season, I at least come in with some knowledge what I want and what characters I like. So
yeah, I'd say that's very much the case here too. Just I worry for this series becoming another situation where it just peters out by the end, and I'm like, no, not again, not with this shit again. But I like it so far. I mean, it's definitely going to be something that's in the middle for me the whole way through.
Tell us about restaurants.
I like restaurants.
I like
we love the world.
Hell
I
yeah.
love this series. I'm going to have way too much bias for this show. I already know it. Because it's just such a fun concept. It's food porn. That's what this show is.
I like Food Wars, so I mean...
It's food porn, but not to like that extent. But it's just such a fun series to watch. It's just relaxing. That's all there is to say about Restaurant to Another World. It's cool seeing the characters come in from like these random ass places in this fantasy world and be like, "Can I have a hamburger?" Oh yeah, this hamburger's.
Imagine getting a hamburger and not a cheeseburger. Can't be me.
Fair point. Fair point. It's just it's such a relaxing show, and I'm hyped for any episode that comes because I'm just like, oh, thank God, 22 minutes out of the week that I can actually feel okay.
Mushako Tensei, or Jobless Reincarnation, or yet another isekai, whatever you want to call it. Second season. I kept putting this off for a while because I wasn't sure if
I didn't even know you had watched the first season.
Yeah.
So
I wasn't sure if I had wanted to continue it because, like, well, I knew I wanted to continue it, but I didn't know if I wanted to make it a priority or not because I did really like the first season. But I have a hard time explaining why I like it and also recommending it to people because it has a lot of things going for it. But it did isekai, like the adaptation did isekai way before the genre was popular and even called by what it is now. So it both does things that are like
the original like source did it
yeah,
before
the original
that.
source
I didn't
did
even
it
know
well.
that.
Yeah, so like in some ways it feels tropey because you're like, oh, I've seen this before, but then in other ways you're like, wait, no one's ever done this before. This is weird. But like. What I like about it is that it's really good at world building, which I'm huge
That's
on.
cool.
You get established characters. They're constantly adding new characters, new races, new magic, all that kind of stuff. The biggest thing that I think a lot of people, and sometimes myself included, is that it has a lot of like sexual themes sometimes.
That's what I had heard, is
yeah.
that it was a little bit pervy in like its
It
first episodes, even with the season 2. It was
Oh, just continuing on, it's pervy. But the interesting thing, I guess, is that sometimes the perviness is in your face, and then sometimes it's just part of the story. Like, a character's going to, like, do the sex somewhere, and then it somehow ends up being part of the story. As opposed to just random
like,
girl...
as long as it's not Redo of Healer, I think we're all okay with it.
It is not. Oh, God.
I mean...
No, it has moments that might make you feel uncomfortable if you don't like that sort of stuff.
Right.
But... the plot itself is so good that even when it's sort of not been my cup of tea, I usually end up forgetting it by the end of the episode. And I like pretty much all the characters, actually. Like, they're really good at characterization in this show. Like, there's been characters that have come on and seem like they might just be a generic Joe, and then by the end of the episode, I'm like, all right, well, I mean, you're not my favorite character, but you're left an impression. I like you. Go on. I also... think it's good at not being constantly predictable. In like episode 1 they're someplace, and then by episode 3 completely different place, so it's both fast paced, but it felt like it made sense that they went from here to here. And I also like sometimes the show is really good with its humor, and you don't expect it. So without spoiling anything, between the course of the first 2 episodes, the main character ends up getting captured by someone, and so you get like a cliffhanger of him getting captured at the end of the second episode. And then episode 3 comes in and immediately he talks about, this is great. This is a rent-free home, free food. And it's like, because you watched the second episode, you know he's talking about being captured. And he's talking it up like it's the greatest thing ever. And then it transitions to, by the way, his voice, like his inner voice, is Gintoki's voice.
Of course it is.
So when things do get comedic, that voice, I just recognize
just
that was
hits.
the peak of comedy. Yeah. But yeah, I could gush about the show, but I'd say more than anything, what I was impressed is that the show is very bingeable. And I think that was part of why I wasn't sure if I wanted to watch it, because I could feel myself...
I doubt that I'll get to this like this year just because I'm so backed up at
I think this was the only show out of what I watched... not necessarily saying it was my favorite, but it was the only one that hurt me that I couldn't hit that next episode button.
Oh, God. Yep, I can relate. I can relate. There's not a lot this season that has done that for me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Going onward, though, I watched Comey Can't Communicate, which is a show that I was never really expecting to get an adaptation. I'm vaguely familiar with the source material.
I was the opposite. I figured it was. Because
yeah?
that manga's been popular for a long time.
That's fair. But I mostly saw it, like, reposted and stuff. And I don't know. I guess I got a very comic-y vibe to it. So I guess, even though I felt like it could have gotten an adaptation...
Just with what has gotten adaptations from comedic stuff recently, I don't put anything past them at this point.
But I was really impressed, because with what they're adapting, I feel like it could have been very easily mishandled. Especially because I've seen a lot of things that have comedic structures, but it's serious undertones, sort of not always getting the best adaptations.
Yeah.
And this was really good. Comey is a really great character, and the main character is pretty great. The concept is basically that there's this girl, Comey, that can't communicate.
She's very shy.
And it's really good because I think this is one of the better shows I've seen tackle some, like, mental health issues, even if it's not expressively.
Because Comey is a very pretty girl.
Yeah.
And, like, you wouldn't click that with someone who's shy or can't do that type of stuff.
Yeah, and the audience, both the audience and the characters know she's a pretty girl. And so it's funny because not all of them realize that the reason she can't talk is because she's nervous or anxious, but, like, the main character catches on and is like, you know, he doesn't believe it at first because he just sees pretty girl. And then I think, because you haven't actually watched the show itself.
I've probably seen as much as the first 3 episodes will cover. Because I read 1 volume of the manga. This was like a year or 2 ago.
So the scene that stuck out to me the most and made me realize that A, they adapted this well, and B, this is going to be a really emotional series, was that there's a scene when you first realize she's bad at communicating, where the main character sort of, where she sort of flusteredly goes up to the chalkboard and starts drawing on it, and then the main character, you know, and then they go back and forth.
Yep.
And at first, you know, it feels almost comical, where it's like, oh, okay. And they go back and forth, like the main character's talking out loud while this is happening to sort of both talk to her and tell the audience what's going on. But there's one part where once they both get going, it stops being comical, they stop talking entirely, and they sort of just let the story tell itself through sort of just this really emotional music playing as you just see what's getting written on the chalkboard and seeing them have this long conversation.
Yeah, that's nice.
And so that alone sold me. I've only seen 2 episodes because that's all that's out. The 3rd episode's airing like later today, I think.
Gotcha.
But basically, by the end of the 1st episode, you realize that Comey really does want to make friends. She's not antisocial by choice, which is a very relatable thing because I think most people that aren't inherently extroverted and confident, or at least one of those two, tend to want to seek interaction and friendship and companionship and all those fun human things that, you know, aren't always easy to, you know, get if you don't have. But, you know, it's cool kind of seeing a character that's relatable with, and her goal is to get 100 friends. And then you find out that pretty much everyone in the school has some weird quirk to them that might make it hard to befriend. So, moving onward. Vampire.
The vampire dies in no time. Yeah. Watched 1 episode of it. It's just kind of a gag comedy. So there's not much to this show. Basically, it's just a vampire hunter is enlisted to kill a vampire living in a mansion, and he goes in, and he immediately kills the vampire by bumping into him.
Oh, okay.
So this vampire will just, at anything's notice, will just evaporate into ashes, and then he comes back because he's immortal.
Oh,
that is the extent of the story of this show. That's all there is to it.
So it's just a running gag show?
It is a running gag show. I thought the first episode was fun. It had a couple funny gags.
I see.
I don't necessarily think it's going to be able to handle being a 12-episode long show.
We'll see.
But we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
That's about all I can say about it.
After that, though,
is Irina the Vampire Cosmonaut. It's a really weird premise for a show. It's like an alternate history space race show like it clearly takes inspiration from the story of Laika, the dog they sent into space. So I believe the premise is that they're set in like what is the equivalent of Russia, and a candidate to be sent up into space is no longer a candidate because of something that happened earlier. And he's tasked with helping a vampire named Arena be the test subject for that shooting into space. This show feels like it might be my Duke of Death because there's a lot to this that just kind of bothers me, but the way it's setting, like the music just feels like something of that era, so the soundtrack works really well. The relationship between the two leads is usually really good. Sometimes it slips into like, oh, she's a tsundere, it's like obvious trope is obvious. But overall, I have a lot of fun with it, and I can't really get a good grasp on why. The only thing that bothers me is something that we actually talked about last season. This vampire is not a vampire. They just act like she's a vampire. Literally, in the first episode, they say she doesn't drink blood.
All right.
I'm just like, that's not... How is that a vampire? I'm like, garlic doesn't hurt her. Any of these...
Does she have anything that you can...
She's got fangs, and she has big ears. That's about the only... The vampire in The Vampire Dies in No Time is more of a vampire than this one is. And I'm just like...
So we have 2 vampire anime this season, but out of both you've watched, the vampires...
The serious one is not a vampire, and the gag is actually a vampire. So, it's just odd. It's odd. But I've had fun with it, so I can't really be too negative.
Maybe she'll become a vampire. Anything else?
Nah, that's about it for that one, yeah.
Blue Period. This was the one I was actually most excited for that wasn't a continuation of something I had already seen. And the reason why, I forget the name of it, but do you remember the one I talked about? What you got there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What was the anime last season that had the dude like working on a project, and it became like he went back in like 10 years and...
Remake Our Life or something like that?
Yeah, Remake Our Life or whatever it was called last season. Did this thing where I liked the first episode because it was all about, hey, I'm an adult, but I'm gonna fix my life. And then it became, wait, what if I went back in time? And I'm like, oh, dang it, that's not what I want to see. Well, the person in this, the main character in Blue Period is younger by default, so it's maybe not fair for me to make this comparison, but I'm going to make this comparison. I like Blue Period because it was more of what I was looking for in that, which is a character that realizes one day that he has an interest in art despite having no skills in art. It pretty much turns his world upside down, and he goes from someone that doesn't quite know what he wants to do, but is just, living day to day, sort of what society expects of him. He's got good grades, he can get into a college, but he doesn't really know what college he wants to get into.
Relatable.
Yeah. And then one day, he finds out he really likes art, and then he's upset that he wasn't doing art sooner. Which,
relatable.
And then, he comes home and he tells his parents he wants to go to art college, and they're all, like, concerned.
See, I hear a ton of good things about this series, and I just, I feel like once this gets a little bit further in the season, you should tell me if I really should be watching this or not, because,
I'm probably going to be telling you should be really getting into the series.
Like right now?
Like
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to start it right now.
Okay.
But this series I'm already sold on, and I read the manga for it. I'm not, up to date with it or anything.
Because honestly, right now, there's a lot of series that I've watched this season that I'm not sure I'm going to continue.
Yeah.
So I could definitely use a stockpile.
Blue Period's really good, and it's very relatable for me, not only because I've always grown up not knowing what I want to do in life, but because very recently I've started to learn what I want to do in life. Mm-hmm. This YouTube channel, I made it in 2019, but I haven't really done much with it until the past few months, and now I actually feel like I want to put effort in this channel, and I wish I wasn't doing it sooner. Mm-hmm. But just like the main characters doing art over and over again and doesn't necessarily have any idea what he's doing, he at least knows, even if he's not good at it yet, this is what he wants to be doing.
Yep.
And so he's going to pursue that, and it's a similar thing here. And it's not just YouTube, but I've done that with playing bass and all that.
Yeah.
And they'll know I play bass if they checked out my 250 subscriber special. All right. Tell us about the manga you pulled off the shelf and the anime.
Miyadoko-chan, right? I only pulled this out to state I like this series. I really do. The manga's pretty friggin' great. The anime hasn't been.
Oh no. Isn't that the worst?
I love the premise of this show.
When you wait forever to get an adaptation, and then when it gets the adaptation, you're like, no, I've been a fan of this forever, and now there's going to be people that see this first, and I'm mad. Because that happened to me with the House Husband adaptation.
Yeah, and this is kind of a similar case, but I would attach this more to the Junji Ito collection. Because this series is a horror comedy. The anime is a comedy horror, if you get what I mean. Junji Ito collection suffered a lot from the fact that the animation just could not capture the artistry of Ito.
It's pretty hard to.
It is, and that's totally fair. I guess I probably should have expected a little bit something like this.
I mean, even giving it that though, it felt like they could have been putting more effort.
For sure,
especially by today's standards. If that came out in like the 80s or 90s, I'd be like, all right, you tried.
Because as has been stated by a lot of other people, art of horror in visual form that's like manga or comics works a lot off of page turns.
Yeah.
You lose that with anime. So you have to be more creative.
Yeah.
I don't think this worked with that, and I think that the actual scares of it didn't hit as well. The premise of Mirako is that she starts basically just seeing spirits in her everyday life, and those spirits are trying to be like, hey, you see me, right? You see me, right? Huh? You see me? So she just decides, you know what? I'm gonna ignore them, and hopefully they'll go away. And that's basically just the comedy of it, is they interlace those two things. This studio is... The studio that did this anime is Passione, which also did, I believe, was the 4th season of High School DxD.
Oh, yeah. I feel like I recall that.
There is so much ecchi in the anime that is not in the manga. And it's very distracting. I think the voice cast is the best part of this anime. They sell those characters so well. So it's a shame that the rest isn't living up to the standard that the manga has. Because the manga, it's just the illustrations look awesome. They're actually scary at points, which is, that's what you want out of a horror comedy. You want both to work as well. This is just kind of one slice of it. Some parts of it have been okay, but for the most part, I'm really disappointed with this.
That's rough, buddy.
Yeah. I'm sad.
Well, at least you always have your source material.
I do have my source material.
Well, for this next one, you're gonna need to have a lot of tact.
Oh no.
So I meant to watch this, but I didn't. And part of my excuse was that today was kind of crunch time, and then I only did so much crunching, and then I was gonna watch this, but because you had already watched it, I'm like, oh hey, you can just talk about it, and I'll watch it another time. So.
Tacked Up, as has been memed to hell and back, is basically Fate plus another show that came out this year, VV Fluoride Eye Song. It is Fate if it was music.
I like music.
It's
I
Sakuga.
Like
this show is just the best animation this season, no cap. It's so good.
Even with Demon Slayer?
Oh, okay. You got me there. But I feel like I could give Demon Slayer the benefit of the doubt and be like, well, you are a recut movie for half of yours. It's the best new animation. I had a lot of fun with this. There's some bits that, like, my brain is just trying to understand because it sometimes it will set something up in its own universe and then immediately contradict it. And I'll be like, wait, how does that work? But it's just super fun. The main cast of Tact, Cosette, I believe is her name, and Anna they have very good, they play off each other really well. They have great chemistry. Voice acting's awesome. The way music is put into it through its combat and just the generalness of it works really well. It's definitely up there for the ones I've liked so far this season. It's essentially a road trip too. And I love road trips in almost anything. Oh, wow. Even in real life. So,
not me, because I'm usually the driver.
This is fair. If you're the driver, it's way worse. But I love that trope. So it being used is really cool.
Okay.
It's also
Goofy
set in
movie.
America. Yeah, the best anime of all time. It's God, I just lost my train of thought. But it's a road trip and it's set in America.
Oh, okay.
Which is even cooler. Oh my god. It can combat a Goofy movie.
Oh man, my favorite three things: music, fate, and a Goofy movie.
Hell yeah. If I don't see Powerline in the series, I swear to God. It's very good, though, and I see why it's got all the hype it has.
Alright, very cool. Well, that's all the anime we watched. That's our first impressions. Pretty good stacked season so far. I feel like it's much better than the previous season. Which I'm actually, again, I'm happy that last season wasn't like a cracked season or anything, because, we're still new at this, but I'm definitely starting to feel the effects of, like, oh no, I have to watch anime to talk about it, but because it's good anime this season.
Yeah, and you always have the ability to drop things.
Yeah,
not
yeah. So after the first impressions video, at the end of this season, we'll be talking about them and putting on a tier list if you're not already aware, if you're new to the concept. But anything that we watched here very well could be dropped at any point, and only the survivors will make it to the anime bar fight where they will brawl for their chance to claim the crown. And last time we were easily able to agree on who was the top dog.
Oh yeah.
But this will be interesting because we chose.
This will be interesting because I feel like we're definitely gonna have different.
There's no dragon maid this time, so I'm very interested to see what we, because we could pick up stuff, we could drop stuff.
Yeah.
But time will tell.
I do feel that you are mostly a blank slate coming into this season too. I believe the only thing that you had coming into this was Mushako Tensei, anyways.
Demon Slayer.
Demon Slayer as well, but Demon Slayer is a weird case this season, so.
Blue Period, which.
I mean, like from the past, not new shows.
I mean, do you count adaptations?
Now I'm confused.
Well, I mean, like, Blue Period has a manga.
Did you read the manga?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there you go. I didn't even know that. So.
Yeah, I thought I mentioned that.
No, I did not.
Yeah, I read part of Comey.
Okay.
So what does that leave? Ayafina.
Yeah.
So I had a stake in pretty much everything I chose.
Right.
In fact, the only reason I didn't like pick up Tact was because I don't have a stake in this, other than the fact that you recommended it to me.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
But yeah. Thanks for checking us out. Tune in next time. Peace.